6 o'clock. Call this 6:07. We'll call this regular session of the Greenville City Council to order. Want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming tonight. And I ask Caleb Shreve to come forward, our Main Street Director, and give the invocation. Please stand.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you for this evening, Lord, for your beautiful creation that we can just enjoy. I thank you for all the people here. I thank you for their sacrifice that they make because this is their home and they want what's best for it. I thank you for their families that are sacrificing time away from their loved ones as well. Lord, you promise that if we ask for wisdom, you graciously give that. And so, Lord, we pray for wisdom over tonight. Lord, we pray that every word is peaceful, Lord, that ears are opened and that, Lord, all of us are just in one accord when we leave. Lord, we thank you for your grace, and we pray that you just bless this time together. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We do have a presentation tonight for Gold Star Wives Decoration Day, and I'd like to ask John Turner to come forward. He's here. Oh, there he is. John? And I'll try to speak into this if we can. Thank you for being here. We appreciate all your service to the community. He previously served on the Greenville City Council, and he's very, very active in the community, particularly with supporting the veterans, and we certainly appreciate this. This is a proclamation for Gold Star Wives Day. Whereas the Gold Star Wives of America represent the spouses and families of members of the veterans of the armed forces in the United States who have died on active duty or as a result of service-connected disability. And whereas Eleanor Roosevelt was a member and one of 15 signers of the original Gold Star Wives of America, Inc., and whereas the primary mission of Gold Star Wives is to provide service, support, and friendship to the widows and widowers of military personnel and to assist them in understanding and obtaining the benefits provided by Congress, and whereas the members of Gold Star Wives visit and volunteer at Department of Veterans Affairs hospitals, military hospitals, and in local communities, as well as participate in national and local memorial services throughout the year. So therefore tonight we recognize you and your dedicated volunteers for your service. And this is the proclamation for that. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Thank
You
you very much.
got a good photographer there too.
He better be.
You gotta wait till you see what's there, so.
I know where he lives.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll call your attention to two placeholders in our agenda: citizens to be heard and public testimony. Citizens to be heard are invited to address the council on items that are not scheduled for public hearing or not otherwise scheduled on the agenda. Public testimonies for items that do appear on the agenda, starting tonight with there are no ordinances, starting with resolutions 8A on your agenda. If you'd like to address the council on any of these issues, please present a citizen's comment card to the city secretary. Are there citizens to be heard? Okay.
John Turner.
John Turner, 3702 Pepperport Drive, Greenville. Main thing I want to talk about, and I'm not condemning or complaining or raising Cain about it, but Stewart Street, from Park all the way down to, as far as it goes, where it's kind of nice, down by that church down there, is absolutely despicable. And I know you've got a lot on your plate about fixing streets and roads and highways and stuff, but that place is almost undrivable. And I can't even park in front of my son's house on Stewart Street. I have to park on the side on the sidewalk. hoping my car won't get hit. There's no sidewalk left there. Well, the sidewalk's there, but there's no curb left. It's completely decimated. Since that pipe blew up and then the whole thing caved in, and it's just a mud hole there when it rains. There's nothing left there. So I'd appreciate it if that could get on some future agenda to be at least looked at. It's a terrible street, really, really terrible. It's narrow. People are parking on both sides. I've almost been hit about 3 or 4 times up there. There was a school bus. Tried to get in there one day, couldn't turn in. There was cars blocking the whole street. He just sat there, blade on the horn till somebody came out and moved the vehicles. But that got cleared up. But it's just a terrible street, terrible street. Somebody needs to go out and really look at it, look at it close, because it's bad. And there was just another huge accident there the other day, right at the corner, right where he lives. The stop sign coming north, it's hard to see on account of a tree and another sign there. So, right through, hit a lady in her brand new vehicle that she had just paid off, hit her right in the door. It's probably going to be a total loss. I saw it because I was on my way over to my son's house, and it was a terrible crash. So anyway, that's about all I got to say. I know you fixed up the streets, and they're starting to look really good, but this is one that really needs to be looked at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Yes, sir.
Lois Conwell.
Hi, my name's Lois Conwell. I live at 4120 Holbrook Street in Paris, but I own several properties here in Greenville. On November 15th, 1984, the city of Greenville sold an old alleyway to be abandoned by the city via quitclaim deed to Lucille Lindsay, thereby purposely and knowingly landlocking my piece of property. 3 summers ago, I was cited by the city for overgrown grass. Steve Methvin then told me to disregard the citation because they could not find any access to my property. I started researching the neighboring properties and looking for solutions and discovered that Lucille Lindsay had passed away and taxes hadn't been paid on the alleyway in several years. I had a solution that I thought would benefit everyone and asked City Greenville attorney Daniel Ray to walk the property with me. On April 15th, 2022, we found the surveyor's marker, and Daniel Ray actually offered me $100,000 for the property contingent upon his wife's approval, but later rescinded due to too many irons in the fire. I then suggested, since Lucille Lindsay had passed away and nobody had paid the taxes for several years, the city could take the alleyway back, thus opening up the easeway to my property. Problem solved. Daniel Ray said he would meet with the proper city officials and get back with me. On November 29th last year, Daniel Ray responded to Realtor Daniel Taylor's phone inquiry and informed Mr. Taylor that the easement had been sold to someone in a foreclosure sale and that I can't build on it. He also mentioned to Mr. Taylor that they might have been bought sight unseen. After 8 months of calling and leaving messages for Daniel Ray without one return call, I became very frustrated. On December 12th of last year, I retained a real estate attorney, Max Friedman, from Johnson Friedman Law Group in Plano, Texas. Last Friday, April 21st, I called Hunt County Clerk Gloria, who said the easement is still listed under Lucille Lindsay and that it takes approximately 1 to 2 months tops to update in the system, and it's been 6 months since Daniel Ray said it sold. I then called the Hunt County Appraisal District, Jamie Martinez, and he said the property is still listed with Lucille Lindsay as the owner and that the tax notice is going out at the end of this month. I also called the 2 tax offices, Lineberger Law Office, and spoke with Melissa. She told me the property has not been sold at their foreclosure sale and is still listed as Lucille Lindsay's. I then called Purdue Law, and Stacy informed me that the property has not been sold in a city foreclosure sale and is still listed as Lucille Lindsay. Every Greenville government office reports that Lucille Lindsay still owns the alleyway, which is the only possible solution to my property easement. everyone except Daniel Ray, who to this day still has not given me the courtesy or respect of a return phone call. Providing that Daniel is misinformed, my request remains the same. I'm asking the city of Greenville to reestablish the alleyway so that I may have access to my property or buy the property from me. If the alleyway has truly been sold, then I would like to have confirmation as to his source and to whom it was sold to. My time's up. I only had so much time, so I put the rest in writing.
Well, I'll give you time to continue if you have something more to say.
Well, I would like to have some kind of, I only have verbal, secondhand information that the property is sold, but everybody has told me that it's still under Lucille Lindsay. I'm very frustrated.
Okay.
I would like to know if you guys could help me. Yes?
When did you buy your property?
Okay, I owned the house at 1507 Park Street, which is at the corner of Park and Moulton, about 20 years ago. That property, that you can see in that packet I gave you, the very last page. That is about a 1 acre lot, right? They call it the center of Greenville on the city block. There was a 5-foot track that connects that property with the house on the corner of Park and Greenville, and I sold that property. I was hoping when I sold my house on the Park and Moulton that the people would want that tract of land, but they did not want it. So I've been trying to sell that property. There was a lot of information I couldn't tell you in three minutes. The surveyors, Owens surveyors, will not even plot that. I have somebody that backs up to Moulton that wanted to buy half of the plot. They won't even plot that property and cut it in half because the city still owns a tract of land that borders that property. And they said if the city will give up part of that land, that they would at least plot the land in half. It's a nightmare with that property. It's totally useless. I have a stack of this high I've got with me of people that have offered to buy the property. I can't sell it because every time I get an offer, they do their due diligence and they see that the property is landlocked.
We'll look into your situation and get back to you.
Thank you.
very
I
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Is there another citizen?
Joyce Dryling.
Joyce Dryling, 6404 Buena Vista Drive, Greenville. Thank you, whoever got street department on redoing the signs on Traders Road. They all look great. I've been in some other neighborhoods that I also would like to thank the street department for. McDougal at Joe Ramsey, that intersection has been, I'm going to say, pothole heaven for near on 4 years. The other intersection is up the Grove at Templeton. I know there's a lot of intersections with school buses. That one has also been resurfaced. Thank you for whoever was implementing those streets, because I avoid up the Grove and Sale, because those intersections are just tearing up my vehicle. But thank you for fixing the intersections.
Thank you for your kind comments. Is that all the citizens?
We have one more.
Okay.
John Sutton.
Mayor Ranson, Mayor Pro Tem Thomas, Mrs. Spurlock, our city manager, Carla. I won't attempt to pronounce the last name. I'm here to talk to you about a terrible situation on Turtle Creek. I live on Turtle Creek Drive. My name is John Sutton. It's 605 Turtle Creek Drive. Turtle Creek runs right through there. And I'm on the first house from the bridge. There are 8 homes that are on the west bank of Turtle Creek, and they all back up to the lower part of Turtle Creek Estates. I've got a bunch of pictures that I won't try to show you other than they look like this. And everybody knows if you can't see the bottom of the creek, you're not going to get good flow. This is one of the more dramatic ones. This home has the big tall tree, but the other tree is in the bottom of the creek. So you can't really get to the bottom of it. And so, I got 2 minutes, so I'm doing pretty good. We start at the bridge that connects east and west, or both sides of Turtle Creek Estates. And the the bridge is elevated. When I'm standing on the bridge, I'm a really tall guy. And that doesn't happen very often. But anyway, the trees that are at the creek, as the creek enters under the bridge, are about 7 or 8 feet over my head, which is, probably 15 or 20 feet from the bottom of the creek. I noticed a lot of activity in the past few weeks north of the bridge. The Turtle Creek runs kind of northeast. And north of the bridge, there's been a lot of activity, bobcats pulling out, bobcat, the little machine, pulling out a lot of debris and stuff like that. And it looks like they did a good job, but they've gone away and nobody's shown up. We did have one person from some agency, I don't know, that was walking Turtle Creek behind the 600 block. And there are 8 homes, I think I said that. But whatever he did hasn't been finished, as far as I know. So I am asking you with a very heartfelt request that you, as a council, decide to make effort to look at that as how you're going to address it. This is probably the second worst year that it's been overgrown. We moved in, I don't have time to tell you.
I'll give you some
Well,
more time.
we moved in in 1967. We knew the condition of the creek. At that time, it wasn't bad, but the day we signed, it got out of its banks, didn't get very far out of the banks. But the city has been overall very good. The worst time we had was after the new bridge was put in. When we first moved there were separate areas. But shortly after that, there was a terrible rainstorm, at which time I was at a school board conference up on the river, and I had to borrow the superintendent's car to come home because it was getting up into the yard. It was bad. Subsequently, they found that the bridge was about 2 feet low, some certain amount of feet, and that's been rectified. So we appreciate the efforts that you've done before. I think this time we've kind of let it go, and
Good.
it's going to take a little bit more than that. If you'd like to have the pictures.
Yeah, why don't you leave the pictures there, and thank you very much with us, if you
Okay.
don't mind. If they're not keepsakes, are they?
Pardon me?
They're not keepsakes, are they?
No,
Yeah, leave us the pictures, and somebody will circle back with you, I'm sure.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton.
Sir,
Good to see you.
Sir.
Thank you.
sir,
I'm sorry, John.
sir, we have been looking at that issue. It's still actively being looked at. There's a few other requests from the citizens in Turtle Creek. One of them was to have the entrance to Turtle Creek mowed because it was growing up. And so we did get that fixed, and that is going to be continually mowed and maintained. But we are still looking at the creek.
But
Be-
sorry, respectfully, it's not a mowing job. It's taking out trees.
I understand, and that's regarding the creek issue. The problem becomes that that's not the only creek that has the same issue. So that's why we're still actively looking at it and trying to figure out a long-term solution that'll benefit both the residents as well as be okay with the city.
What's the other creek or other creek?
There's several. There's one right behind the Methodist Church, which is a continuation into Turtle Creek across. So it'd be behind the Q, between the QT.
And that's all Turtle Creek, right?
Yes, sir. And so the point is, if you have to clean more than just one spot, and so it becomes a much larger issue than just the creek behind your house. And so that's why we're
Well,
still looking at it.
Of course, the downstream barrier is not gonna honor the Methodist Church problem, because it's just gonna sit there and back water up. So respectfully, I think you need to work at the downside part first,
Okay.
where it's not clean. Thank you.
Sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sutton. Okay, there are no public hearings tonight. That's all the citizens, I understand. Public hearings, there are no public hearings tonight. There are no ordinances, resolution, consideration action on a resolution approving the Texas DIR purchase of an open government budgeting and planning suite. VP.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. What this request is, I'll go ahead and go to the second slide here in a second, but what this request basically is it would be asking for an additional software product for, specifically, it would route through the finance department, but really the effects that it would see are really departmental and citywide. So this big picture is kind of all of the different areas that a city can have across the board on this diagram here. So going left to right now, we do not have a specific budgeting and planning suite. It's kind of a combination of just a multitude of different Excel files we have, and then our core financial system has some budgeting aspect to it, but at the very, very elementary level. On the moving left to right is a procurement system. We aren't big enough to have that, and we don't want that. We just have a purchasing agent in-house on my department that handles that. That middle financials bucket, that's kind of our core financial and utility billing component that we have with Tyler Encode, and that is currently what I use for our budgeting process, but the module we have is not necessarily built for the budgeting and planning piece. And then on the right there, we have the permitting license and code enforcement. That's that huge InterGov project and contract that we began last year that's kind of fleshing out our online capabilities with Public Works and with community development. And then lastly is asset management, which that is kind of currently handled. I'd say that top bucket of actual asset management is also handled by our current Tyler product. And then InterGov is also helping fulfill those other things. And so what this request is really filling is, if you'll look in that first bucket, is it's kind of enhancing our operating budget capabilities, kind of bringing that into the modern century, as well as the other components of it are a capital planning module, workforce planning, and then an ability to bring our budget book online. Right now, our finance department really begins mid-April through the end of August with the budgeting process, and probably the biggest, I'd say, headache with that piece is the current budget book format that we use, which is all PDF-based and Excel file-based, as well as other internal systems. So we are just kind of bringing in a lot of different information from Encode and from these separate Excel files I operate, and then kind of plugging them into a PDF format that isn't really, it's Adobe PDF. It's not even like any kind of like a other system outside of that. So, and then there's also that bottom kind of bucket there of reporting and transparency platform. And what that is just a variety of different dashboards, analyst transparency, kind of more internal things and how we choose to operate within our different departments. So that's just kind of the overview of the request here. And then this is just kind of high level, just talking about everything I kind of did on the left. You know, traditionally, people have a bunch of different departmental system Excel files, and you're running it into a budget operating process. And this kind of nets and captures all of that. And, you know, a lot of things that just our current system doesn't do. Our current raw budget system is us just inputting whole numbers and then it funneling down into Encode, whereas this thing has all of these different features. I won't touch on all of them, but, you know, outcome-based budgeting, trend analysis, operational reporting, and then also really I'd say the biggest piece here too is the online budget book and just everything that you can capture and be outward facing to the community that it's just difficult to capture within a PDF file that we currently utilize.
I assume I assume you're going to be able to bring this online and use it for this budget cycle.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll kind of
Silly
speak.
question, but.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think my last slide wraps up kind of the timeline of all of these different pieces. But this is, I think, one of the important things of when I said it kind of touches all of the departments. So right now, that core financial system that we use is it is a raw accounting and finance system. Just when you think of as simple as data can be, just line items after line items. All of our departments, I'd say most of the department heads and admins have access to that system, but the reporting on it is very, very raw, rough, and rudimentary, and it's difficult for other departments to run those specific reports and pull data out of it, which results in pretty much if anybody wants data for their department, they're coming to my department to pull reports that really don't really tell them a lot of info. So kind of what I foresee with this dashboard piece is I could meet with, my police chief and just have one meeting with him at the beginning of a year and say, well, what kind of data do you want to see from Encode, from your finance and accounting system? What is meaningful to you? And then we have that one meeting, my team sets it up, then they have access to that live data all year round, which they currently do not. Now it's if they want to see data for 1 month, they come to us and we pull it for them, whereas this would just, I think, give them a lot of more, responsibility isn't the word, but just a lot more hands-on connection with components of their budget, as well as any other data we would want to house in this system that I think they monitor now during the budget season, but I'd say it just, top to bottom would give them a lot more control and transparency on some of the stuff they already asked me for. There's also different features where you can have city manager can have a dashboard, the city council members can have a dashboard too. If each of you would want one, I could meet with you individually and set it up. So just a lot more transparency of live data from our financial systems. And this is just, again, high level. That kind of top bucket talks about some of the different planning and use cases. And it's also used a lot by some people local to us. I thought that might be helpful to kind of put in mind of how much it's used by 1,600 governments. Some local ones are Fate, Farmersville, Melissa, Mount Pleasant, different places such as that. And then this last piece is kind of the price and the timeline. So kind of everything I talked about with like the kind of like the billing out of that workforce planning suite, the capital planning, the operating budget, we would not start that piece until October. And we'd build that out October to December for implementation into really January in the next budget season. So all those kind of tools I was talking about from the budgeting standpoint, that would go into effect next budget season. But now what we would want to do right now is we would want to begin in May this kind of implementation of the online budget book. And so we'd kind of build it out May, June, and July for us to then move forward with and have an online budget book for this budget season. And there's a lot of components in there too that are like really telling the story of the city at each departmental level and really just more fleshed out from what we can currently provide in a PDF budget book. I gave this presentation to the Fiscal Affairs Subcommittee, and I'll let any of them maybe speak afterwards of anything that I maybe forgot to mention that I presented to them. But I think a really key component too is with all of these capital projects that we began and we're moving forward with, that feature that I really got into detail with the subcommittee, I think that's something that really our city needs from a transparency standpoint, outside, from an outside point of view looking in. And I think you can just do a lot more as far as, the way we can present that and keep people in the loop and kind of a live feed on our city finance website as part of that online budget book. Another cool component of that budget book online as well is it kind of every time I reconcile a month internally, you can then compare that data live as kind of like a tracker to the budgeted thing. Whereas right now our budget book, it's made October 1st and it's frozen in time and it's just a document of here's our budget, but nothing as far as actuals. So essentially what I'm asking here is this runs on a 5-year contract. So like any of our other software products, it really comes as a 5-year cost standpoint. So the total cost, I believe, comes out to like $217,000. It's on the agenda and in your packet. But basically, we have found the money through internal budget transfers from my department. Our audit came in cheaper. We had a operation, $29,000 that we're not doing this budget year, and then we had some left over in my travel and training. So for that amount, the one-time cost and annual fee wrapped up that first year for $49,000. That would be to implement and get the online budget book off the ground for as of October 1st of this year. Then that second year is a little higher because it includes that second half of the implementation process for all of those other budgeting tools that'll really, and I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but those budgeting tools that I was talking about would really cut down my finance department. Like I said, we spend about probably 4 solid months, and a lot of that is on the online budget book. And I think that my department would be able to just spend a lot more time on the analytics and different components like actual finance, just finance performance and measures, as opposed to right now we're spending a lot of time on that budget book, that if you take that out, we can just spend our focus elsewhere. So anyway, that second year is a little higher because it includes that second implementation cost on top of the annual subscription, and then the annual subscription price is roughly $43,000 a year after that point. But the reason I included this slide is just because I wanted everyone to understand it's a 5-year contract. It's not, just 1 year. And so then it becomes baked into the budget after this year into our software line item. So I wanted to be transparent about that. It is on Texas DIR, so we do get the best government pricing as well on that, and it's guaranteed through the life of the contract. So, and then I had just a question slide if anyone had any questions, and then I don't know if Terry, TJ, and Daniel thought I presented this the same way I did in our subcommittee meeting, or if y'all had any additional comments.
I think you covered everything that I can remember.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd add is that the intention is to bring this on in addition, and then as you continue to ramp this software up, you'll continue to phase out the older software, which will be beneficial financially for us.
Yes, yeah, those buckets that you were talking about, that's a question TJ had in the meeting, is he asked if, well, is it an issue that we're running all those different components on essentially separate providers or separate vendors, and I let him know, those usually run on 3 to 5 year contracts, so every time we approach that, it's something we consider before we just renew something, as we see, well, how does it currently work in conjunction with each of those buckets, and does it make sense to consolidate them down as you go along?
And GP, I look at this as a streamlining effect in perspective, the way Steve did it engineering about, 18 months ago or something like that? And Summer reminded me that all this feeds into all that together.
Correct.
So that's great.
Yes, it works with all the systems, even though it would be an OpenGov product. It does correspond with all those Tyler technology systems, as well as the other branded vendors we have within those buckets.
Any other questions or comments from the committee or any of the council members?
I don't have a question. I mean, I'm excited about it. I heard a lot about this at TML, and I was always curious, what is OpenGov? So I'm excited if we go forward.
Yeah, and I do it, and if you just Google, I didn't include this in my slide, but we reviewed it with the committee, but the town of Northlake, I'd say, is a really good example. So if y'all are just curious after this, if you go visit Northlake's website and bring up their budget book, that's probably the first year template that I'll model after, just as, if anyone's curious.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this point, I'll open this item up for public testimony. Does anyone here like to speak either in favor or opposition to this item? There being no one, what is the pleasure of the council regarding this issue?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Motion, is there a second?
I would second that.
Motion second, please vote. And it passes 6-0 with one absent. Okay, I'd like the city secretary to read the consent calendar, please.
City Council minutes from April 11th, 2023. Action on a resolution awarding a bid for property located at 3011 St. John Street. Action on a resolution appointing members to Place 2 and Place 3 of the Juice Board of Trustees. Action on a resolution approving a reappointment to the TMPA Board. Action on a resolution for an application to Texas Department of Transportation's 2023 Transportation Alternatives set aside.
Thank you. Are there any questions on any of these items from the city council? If not, I'll open this up for public testimony. Does anyone like to speak either in favor or opposition to these issues, these items on the consent calendar? There being no one, what is the pleasure of the council regarding this issue, these issues?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Motion is second.
Second.
There's a motion and second, please vote. And it passes 6-0 with Councilman Cruz absent. City staff report, City Council, GBOD, Greg Sims, CEO, President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'll be brief. Per bylaws, this is our second quarterly financial report we submitted to you. Just real briefly, our juice income is coming in as expected. We're about 53%, 53.53% of our budget right now to date. Interestingly, our juice revenue is up 16.8% over this time last year. Our sales tax is coming in about 58.6% of budget right now, and it's up about 3% this time last year. Operating expenses, 47% of the budget for GBOD and 38.96% for 4A, all to be expected. Our ending cash balance right now, as it states, so of this report, $748,379 for GBOD, $2.747 million, $796 for 4A, for a combined ending cash balance of $3,496,175. And we submit that for any questions.
Questions for Greg? Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Monthly status report, Summer.
Thank you, Mayor. This will be as of 4/25, as of today. Waste connections, you'll see quite a bit of an uptick for the month of March. I'm sure that has a product of we issued the new contract in March. I'm not quite sure, but you can assume a few things. I don't know quite what April's going to look like. I haven't had as many emails, quite as many emails as I've had in that I did in March, so maybe that'll get a little bit better. We are continuing to work with the new contractors. GP has been meeting with them on a regular basis, trying to get everything straight and sticking to that timeline. So we're still primed and ready to move forward from that standpoint. We're still issuing complaints. There's Waste Connections is still responding to those kind of things. I did hear Blackjack is advertising for workers, so they're going through with their process from that standpoint. I heard the other day, I think they did it on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but that's what I've been told. All right, Carla, I don't know where it went. I can't see it. All right, go ahead. Utility cuts in the month of March, we did 14, a little bit slightly down. This would be us using the contractor to do those bigger utility cuts, so a little bit lower there. Potholes, we're about 74 in different locations. So that's kind of on the weather, thankfully, for the month of March was fairly well, and we haven't had a lot of issues with there. We've got a couple of options for asphalt providers. So I think the streets crew is doing an exceptional job. I know one of the citizens mentioned the intersections, but being able to fix those intersections also helps. Number one, the street, obviously the intersection look better, but then our crews can come behind them and fix those potholes, and it really looks like the rideability on that whole entire street has gotten better from different perspectives. So we're going to continue that program from a standpoint of the maintenance part of it, that you guys allowed us to put about $500,000 in for that maintenance. Those intersections really aren't too terribly expensive, and so we're going to continue that. So you could probably see that a lot more, and that'll be amped up a lot more in this better weather during the summer. Street sweeping, they're still doing the street sweeping, did quite a bit. I need to ask why this got amped up pretty big, but we did, we do downtown on a weekly basis, so I'm sure they did downtown a little bit more. We'll probably have to go behind TxDOT and all the work that they're doing as well and do some street sweeping, but he really did about 325 total miles of street sweeping for the month of March. And the weather was good too, so I will attribute some of it to that. Continue to mow the normal areas that we do mow. We are still getting some assistance from the inmate crews. They're helping us on a monthly basis with the weed eating and the things that we can't necessarily get to from a drainage standpoint. So that's all going really well, and I think they're even giving us more crews than they've had in the past. So that's been going really well. They cleared about 15 in the month of March, so that's about normal for the line of sight. Those are getting a little bit more difficult now. with the weeds and in the grass and things growing. So we're clearing off those to make sure that we have line of sight and right of ways. Only replaced about 14 signs for the month of March. That'll probably see an uptick. We've had a lot of requests for the new subdivisions for new signs, so you'll see those numbers coming in there as well. We had about 63 building permits issued, which is up from, obviously from the month of February. I think we're gonna continue to see this trend. If we look back in March of 22, it looks like there was 33. So that's quite a bit more. If you'll notice, a lot of the subdivisions around, we're starting to close those out with the infrastructure that they're building. So I think this number on the building permit side is gonna be, I think our engineering department told us, just in the last week, we had about 50, and that was from different developers that are starting to develop those subdivisions. So I think we'll see an uptick in that on a consistent basis. And then COs issued, there were only about 5. That's about normal for that amount of time. Just because you issue a building permit doesn't mean you're going to get a CO that same month. So you'll see that lag a little bit. And I think raw water line, we're at the same point. At this point, we haven't procured any new pipe. I do need to check in with them. I talk to the Bartlett and West probably about once a week in regards to the pipeline, but they talk to our water treatment plant superintendent on a consistent basis, and so we're just continuing that process. No really new updates to give you guys at this point for this month, but hopefully in the next couple of months we'll have some updates to go from there. But we're in good shape as far as from the raw water line from a budget standpoint, so we're in good shape. So if y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, item 11, City Council discussion of proposed agenda items. Any items like to come forward?
I have a question for Ms. Summers.
Okay.
On the reservoirs out there, do we have any signs out there to show when people can go fish, when they can't go fish out there? Do we have any
I believe so. Yeah, I think there's times. Yeah,
Yes.
there's times of when it's open and when it's closed. It's similar to our park signs. I haven't been out there in a while,
They're out
but
there.
yeah, they're still there.
Probably should update them, but they're out there.
They're out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, there should be.
Well, some people ask me about it, I just want to make sure before I.
Like they were asking if they were out there or they needed it like
Well,
refreshed.
No, they was asking about, a guy wanted to fish after 10 o'clock.
No, parks, I mean, same as all of our parks are closed as well, so no, he can try to fish, but somebody might follow him in.
You know, I'm just saying, that's the way they used to do it, so, but.
Sure, yeah, certainly.
I explained to them that, you just can't do that.
Yeah, we treat them like we treat the parks, and it's closed at, after certain times and opens at certain times as well, so,
I would suggest maybe updating the signs.
okay.
Yeah,
We can look at them, okay.
Okay, item 12, you have before you board and commission minutes, the Greenville Board of Development meeting of March the 29th, and we've completed our executive session tonight, so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming tonight.